Hi guys, it's Sam from the Pekin Public Library. I'm here on video 2 of our writing workshop. We are going through different, whoops, let me get my camera right here. Different ways to write fiction, and right now we are focusing on collection strategies, just ways to collect stories or ideas for stories. Yesterday, we talked about how to turn an ordinary moment into a fiction story by putting some kind of weird twist on the moment. So my ordinary moment was walking along a creek with my family, and the weird twist that I put on it is that my brother disappears, and there's like a trail of blood leading into the woods, and I'm not sure what happened to him. It's a really great strategy. If you haven't tried it out, definitely do. But in the end, it really doesn't matter. If this story moves on from my collection to what I actually want to write about, awesome. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. This maybe will give me something to come back and write about another time, but really it's just a way for me to practice, a way for me to get my creative juices flowing and come up with ideas that I didn't have before. So just try it out. Even if you can't think of anything that you think is great, it doesn't matter. The most important thing is that you start writing, that you try everything, and that you just get something on the page. Today, the collection strategy we're going to be talking about is stories you wish existed, and I really love this one too. So a story you wish existed is just maybe something that you've never seen on the page before. It could be out there, but you haven't read everything. So a story that you would really like to see come to life. It could be a story that's like your life, but better. Maybe your dad has like a giant truck, but in your story, your dad is like a monster truck driver, and for whatever reason, you have to take over for him and be the monster truck driver. I don't know. You could write a story you love continued. There are some stories that just end and you wish they never would, or some series that end and you wish they never would because you love them so much and you love the characters so much, you just want to know what happened to them after the story was over. So that's definitely another type of strategy that you can use to come up with stories you wish existed. You could develop a little known character more. And all of this is kind of when we start to get into fan fiction territory. If you've never read fan fiction, for a comic book or a movie or an anime or a video game that you like, you can definitely go out and search. There are people writing stories about your favorite characters all the time. And developing a little known character more is a really common way to write fan fiction. And even authors do it sometimes, like Stephenie Meyer, who was the author of the Twilight series, wrote another book after the Twilight series called The Short Second Life of Bree Tanner. And that was about one of the vampires, one of the brand new, like, young vampires, and what her life was like before she died. So even authors do it with their own stories. Definitely something that you could try too. You could write a story that's an explanation for something you don't understand. And this kind of goes back historically in ancient history to the ancient Greeks and even before them, cavemen, the Mayans. There are so many cultures that just came up with stories to explain things that they didn't really understand, whether it was natural phenomenon, things like tornadoes or earthquakes or rainstorms, thunder and lightning. People came up with all kinds of stories to explain those things. So you could maybe write some kind of myth or legend to explain something that occurs that you don't really understand. You could rewrite an ending you didn't like. Endings are hard, and a lot of times people get to the end of the story and are pretty dissatisfied with the way a story ends. One of my favorite books is The Giver by Lois Lowry, and if you've ever read it before, you'll know what I'm talking about. A lot of people were really dissatisfied with the ending of that book because it's very ambiguous. You're not totally sure what happened to the main character. For 20 years, she got fan mail about that book, about how much people were unhappy with the ending and how they just want to know what happened to Jonas at the end of the book. And she actually ended up writing 3 more books to put people's mind at ease 20 years later. So yeah, endings can be controversial. Maybe you can rewrite an ending that you didn't necessarily agree with into something that you think would have been a little bit better. Definitely a way that you could go. You could tell a story from another character's point of view. This is another one of my favorite ways to tell a fiction story. I love fractured fairy tales. If you've never read one of those before, it's like a fairy tale, but usually told in some goofy way or from another character's point of view. There's one called The True Story of the Big Bad Wolf. I think that's what it's called, by John Saiska. And the wolf is the one that's telling the story about what really happened with the three little pigs. And it's hilarious. The pictures are amazing. I think it would be interesting to see maybe like Harry Potter told from Draco Malfoy's point of view. Can you imagine what a different story that would be? And he just goes through so much, especially toward the end of the series. I just really want to know what's going on with him a little bit more. So thinking about another character, especially the opposite character. Usually we're hearing things from like the hero's point of view, where that's the person they're focusing on. What about the antagonist? What about the bad guy? What's going on with them? Kind of like the movie Maleficent, a completely different view on the Sleeping Beauty story. Just something to think about. You could talk about a wish that you have. And that's actually the strategy, or the one that I decided to focus on, a wish that you have. Who hasn't wished for things before? You think about rubbing the lamp and a genie coming out. What would your 3 wishes be? Ugh, I can't even imagine what I would wish for. But one wish that I have just in real life, which I'm sure is probably true for a lot of people, is I wish I had enough money to not have to worry about money. I wish I could just buy people I love things without thinking about it, give money away to people without thinking about it, pay bills without worrying about it. It's just one of those real life things that kind of gets in the way sometimes. So I decided that that's what I wanted to write about. And I just listed some possible story ideas. That's one of the ways that you can do collection that we talked about yesterday, just coming up with a list of ideas. So my story ideas were maybe I win the lottery. Maybe I find out I had a rich relative that died and left me everything and I didn't even know about them. Or maybe I have magic pockets, which is kind of a weird thing, but I've always thought it would be really cool to reach into your pockets and just find money in there every time that you put your hand in your pocket. So that's what I decided to go with. And I decided, instead of writing part of my story today, I was just going to write a summary of my story. So I'd like to read you my summary. I am somehow, I don't know how yet, granted a special power. Every time I put my hands in my pocket, I pull out $1,000. I start buying everything I ever wanted, and it's awesome. But I start changing, becoming stuck up and selfish. All of my friends stop talking to me, and my new friends only like me for my money. Eventually, read my own handwriting. Eventually, I realized that the money is ruining my life, and I wish the power away. Again, I'm not totally sure where that story would go. I don't know how I get the powers. This is just the collection part. It took me probably 10 minutes to write all of this down. So just try it. Maybe pick one of these ideas and go with it. You never know what you might come up with. You could pick more than one of these ideas and go with it. Just see what you come up with. And don't forget, for the actual collection part, you can just write down a list of ideas for stories that you might have. You can write a summary, or you could even write part of a story like I did yesterday. Enjoy, try it out. Let me know what you think. Leave me a comment, send me an email, something, Facebook message me, and let me know how your writing is going. And I'll talk to you next time. Bye.